I'm at the National Archaeology Museum in Dublin, and this is the Bog Bodies exhibition. I'm standing next to Clonycavan man here. Clonycavan man, one of those kings we believe who was sacrificed. He is in his 20s, but he's also over 2,000 years old. We believe around 300 BC was when he was a king, and this is a real body. It looks like a leather jacket at the moment, but this is somebody who did exist in this world. And he would have been chosen as a king, would have been a smart guy, proven himself in battle, killed in the summertime, so we know that because there was vegetables found in his diet. So the druid would have decided that he needs to go. So the fertility goddess who married him when he was inaugurated now wants a change, wants a new husband. So they would have taken him and they would have killed him. This guy was killed through the eyes, it pierced his brain, and then they hit him on the head with an axe 3 times after that. It's called overkill, again, just to make sure he's imperfect, so he's not the king. They cut off his nipple, disemboweled him, and then buried him in ancient boundary lines. This guy had a gel in his hair, which contained plant resin from Spain and Portugal, which shows us that he was somebody of aristocratic status. Also, his hair is in a man bun. He actually doesn't have red hair, which a lot of people comment on. He's got dark hair, and we'll see a replica of his head later on. His hair was in a man bun just because, 2,000 years ago, people still had the same anxieties and were conscious of their height. He's 5'9", so he wanted to give himself the appearance that he's much taller through this man bun. And then they would have replaced him with another king, and then hopefully things would have been more abundant and prosperous. So this is the head of Clonycavan man, a replica of his head, and as you can see, he's looks like quite the hipster. Looks like somebody you would see in any cafe in Dublin now. This is Oldcroghan man here. Oldcroghan man is missing his head, as you can see. We believe what happened to this guy, he wasn't too happy with the idea of sacrifice. He put up a fight, and you can imagine him in his tent, and a group of soldiers arrive, and he knows that things aren't working out well in his kingdom, so he knows something is happening. And perhaps he can hear the furore of horses, and there's a feast coming, a feast to celebrate his sacrifice. But he probably armed himself, got ready, and then when the soldiers came, he put up a fight. He's 6'3", so he was well able. That was tall for even back then. And unfortunately, they got the better of him. But he probably took out 1 or 2 of them in the process, because he has a lot of defensive wounds in his arm. He still wouldn't play along. They had to pin him down on the ground. That's why he's got a cut in his bicep there, pin him to the ground so they could perform the ritual, which we don't really know about because it wasn't written down, but we can only guess that the druid would have had incantations that he would say in Irish, in Old Irish, and then they would have killed him. This guy was killed straightforwardly through the heart, and then decapitated, and then cut in half. So not a nice way to die, but again, that's the overkill. We know he was somebody of aristocratic background because he has an armband there made of leather, and his fingers and his hands are very well manicured. Again, he is not somebody who worked on the land. They didn't have a middle class back in pre-Christian Celtic Ireland. So then, here he is. Hopefully they replaced him with somebody else, and then society prospered again once he was gone. This is over 2,000 years ago, again, just to remind you. And then in the last 2,000 years, peat, or old vegetation, grew, and it formed blankets of bog or peat. 1 meter of peat is 1,000 years. In the last 20 years, about 20 years ago actually, a lot of bodies were discovered way deep down in the peat through the peat cutting machines using in the peat industry. And in 2.3 meters, they discovered all of these bodies who we believe to be these pre-Christian Celtic kings. And they were well preserved because the peat is highly acidic, there's no oxygen, so it really preserved things like bodies and butter and many other things. And that's what the exhibition is here. It's actually these ancient kings, their bodies that have been well preserved.